but I feel like the fact that so many of the fights are such single target oriented fights, um, like I don't know about you, but uh, we have abilities that it's not going to let us fucking change specs because it's on cooldown, which is fucking stupid, to be honest.
Yeah, that's very
Why
annoying.
is that a thing? Why is it? I can't think of a single fucking time where that is going to prevent someone from doing something really weird and being badass or something like that. No,
Yeah,
that
no.
that's an artificial bullshitty thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's bad. It's very annoying. With us being hunters, like not being able to switch specs because salvo is on cooldown is fucking ridiculous. Like
Yeah, and
it's
I mean
know
it's not a huge cooldown either.
no,
But
but
it's like we've already got other shit to do. It's like we've already all got to get there, and then people have to talk about the shit at least for the first week or so, and then half the raid hasn't repaired in the past 2 hours, and then someone notices that half the raid didn't enchant their shit, so we've got to pull out the guild bank, and we've got to pull out the auction mount, and we've got to try and make sure people have
well,
their fucking
we can't
enchants.
mount up this time, so that's not a
No, but we
thing.
can send somebody outside and then summon them back. And
Yeah,
then oh,
yeah,
okay,
with the
we've got
warlock.
that done. Oh well, shit. You just did the pull timer, but nobody's fucking eaten yet because you were so
Guilty,
intent on getting this shit done.
guilty.
We've got to take another 2 hours doing fucking loot because we're going through loot and
Yeah,
like we're trying to
Jesus.
be concise, but everybody wants to fucking talk. And then somebody's gonna get salty because they miss loot because you were fucking talking about loot. So like, there's so many other things that we have to deal with. The fact that changing talents every fucking fight is one of them is just one more irritation. It's not like game breaking and it's not
No, it
horrible.
takes 2 seconds.
Yeah,
It's
but it's an oversight. It's an oversight. It's something that they should think about in the future changing.
well, I mean, I don't know how they would change that though. I mean, what are you expecting? What are you wanting to change here? Like just
Make it where that is not a thing. I mean, seriously, can you think of a time when someone is going to very quickly hop into combat, use an ability, hop out of combat, change their talents, and then use uh, a slightly different setup to hopefully do increased damage with all that time in between?
the only thing that I can think of right offhand is no, no, not a damn thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
So it
the only thing I can really think of that I can pull right out of my ass as a hunter is switching pets. But that's the only thing that I can kind of get is like they don't want you switching from a pet that gives you a defensive cooldown to a pet that lets you do hero back to back. Like I get that,
yeah, but that's not something where you'd have to hop out of combat and
right?
swap fucking talent trees.
Right, and it's yeah, no, it's an annoyance that they do need to just
Now, I guess I can understand it if there's something technical about it. Like, if it's on cooldown, they have a literal technical limitation that they can't swap to another talent build. I
well,
could understand that, but even that doesn't seem correct,
you
you
know,
know?
I don't get it. I don't. Um, like we've got two main abilities that we have to wait to come off the cooldown before we switch talents, and that's volley and salvo.
Yeah,
Like, if those are on cooldown on our AOE trees, we can't switch to single target until those are off cooldown.
basically, yeah.
You
Yeah,
don't have to worry about volley because you run volley with your single target build, right?
that's
So
true, I do.
okay,
I,
so
I do run volley with my single target.
me running with the steady focus that we all know you love.
Oh yeah. I mean, I
So
kind of wish I could do it without volley. Like I get it. It's not ideal, but at the same
it's
time,
It's the way
for
that
the
tree
low
runs.
price of
Yeah.
telling steady focus exactly whose ass it could go crawl up. I'm happy with my choice.
Okay. Yeah, I know. It's not like you're not competitive or anything. It's you know what you're doing. It's more simplified gameplay. I agree with you on that. I've gotten used to running steady focus, so it's not horrible anymore. But I get it. Trying to do. I guess the raid's going good. I think it is undertuned a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but I think it's where it should be. I think it's to a point where it's accessible for the vast majority of people. This is probably one of the most accessible raids we've had in a long time.
I actually think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's overtuned at all. I think it's overtuned from the standpoint of previous raid. I think it's only undertuned rather
Yeah,
from the standpoint if you compare it to previous raid tiers, which were horribly overtuned.
yeah. Which the last few raid tiers have been like. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
Razagap, for example, was fucking
oh
horrible.
yeah, yeah. Blizzard is still they still have issues with a lot of their design implements. They still do the whole blue on blue on blue on blue on blue. They still
Yeah.
do the hey,
Uh,
we're going to make you jump through 47,000 mechanics in the span of 2 seconds and make your heart feel like it's going to explode.
I think
Oh
the last couple of bosses in the raid are like that, but
yeah,
but
but they're actually they're not as bad as previous tiers either, which
oh
is
God
good.
no, God no, and that's what
Yeah,
I was about to say. Especially the first 5 6 bosses are pretty simple mechanically until
yeah,
you get up into the mythic difficulty, and in all honesty, going back to the tending, that's how it should be.
yeah.
I think that's how it
It
should
really
be.
is.
Normal and
I mean,
heroic is very accessible for the average player right now. I think. I don't think it's out of the question for the vast majority of players to be able to go into normal and heroic and say, "Hey, I can do this content."
yeah,
You know.
absolutely. And honestly, from a certain standpoint, if you're in normal and heroic, you're already kind of a hardcore player compared to most of the fucking player base.
Yeah.
Because most of the player base, they're not looking up guides, they're not looking up build guides, they're not looking up boss guides, they don't have, umpteen different add-ons, they're not tracking their DPS and their they're not in a voice chat trying to make sure that they're actually coordinated. Like the average player simply is not that.
Right.
Um,
But
so even from the standard of making it more accessible to the average player, I think this is a win. But just
it
making it
is.
more accessible to even just basically not the elite.
Yeah.
It's been a big win for that, and I still feel like a lot of it is. I don't feel like it's so much that it's easier, though that may be functionally what it is. I think it. I really think it's better design and better tuning. I think it is more in line with what it needs to be.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's to me, it feels better. It feels good. Like I said, there's always going to be things that can improve on, like the constant, like you said, the color on color on color mechanics. There's a lot of fire or there's a lot of void,
Yeah.
and they're all combined, and it's yeah, it's a little too much. They could throw some greens or yellows or something out there to make it a bit more
Well,
visible,
and
but
and I get it. Some of that stuff, like it, when you think about it, it's like, oh, okay, well, you have a big fire demon. Throwing out green probably doesn't make sense, right?
yeah,
But that doesn't mean that you can't telegraph things well. That doesn't mean that you can show the actual area of the AOE. It doesn't mean that you can't, show the path. It doesn't even have to be like, oh, look, I'm looking at the thing. Like, put a fucking streak underneath that's literally like just like a transparent HUD that shows you, where things going, where it's hitting, gives you a general idea of the speed, that kind of thing. Uh, I feel like a lot of people think hard about their add-ons, and they feel like it makes it easier in the game. That's true, but I feel like a lot of the add-ons, at least that I use, functionally don't make the game any easier so much as they give me the information that I need to fucking play the game.
Yeah,
Because because
between
Blizzard
that and the weak auras, it's
yeah, I mean they obfuscate so much, and they mistelegraph, and like just across the board. There's so much that is functionally harder than it needs to be, not because it's actually hard, but because Blizzard has done a fucking piss poor job at it. And I feel like I'm giving them the third degree here because they have been getting better. They
yes,
have
they're
been.
definitely getting better.
Like
Give them
I
credit
I
where
already
credit's due.
far.
It's
Oh yeah, I far prefer this raid than I did last raid, and I really liked last raid.
yeah.
I felt like thematically it was fun, but fight design, this is way better than it was before.
Yep, I'm with you. Again, just the mechanics, the simplified, more simplified mechanics. I won't call them simplified mechanics, but they're more simplified mechanics. I think the mechanics are more straightforward on most of the bosses. Like there's just
Yeah,
nothing super crazy really until you get into Echo and Sarkath. Um, so yeah,
and so I kind of wonder if some of that's because they hid the auras from weak auras and stuff or something like that. There was a whole lot of discussion about that making a big
yeah.
difference. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, but I feel like it really wasn't that bad.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
it 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 is to a point where I get it. Uh, you want to allow players to customize up so much, I think, because the game is built off of that a lot. Just because it's got a long history of it. They've allowed it for so long, you really just can't take it away. Um,
yeah, but they do such a fucking piss poor job of designing it in a way where that's not beneficial,
in
right?
all honesty, I think they have, if anything, they design it around it now.
Well,
I honestly think they do, just
I think,
because.
yeah, some of that may be the case, but some of it is literally just, I don't want to say laziness. I want to say that they just ignore certain things. Like, for example, let me give you an example from, uh, not even last raid. We'll go one further back. We'll go back to, what is it? The jailer raid, right? You remember? Do you remember Pantheon?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the kind of thing that they mention that they're hiding auras for, or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, and I think they mentioned this one specifically at one point or another. But do you remember Pantheon? Occasionally they'd throw out the two debuffs, and those two players would have to run under a shield. They'd have to be dispelled under the shield,
Yep.
and if you didn't do that, then it blows up and everyone's dead and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. you know, People complain about these quote unquote computational add-ons that play the game for you.
Hmm.
Is it really a computational add-on that plays the game for you when what it does is, you have this tiny fucking little square in the corner of your thing that's debuffs, and like, who the fuck is gonna fucking notice that? Nobody. There's no indication other than that you have a thing, other than maybe like a small arrow over your head, and it's the same color as every other fucking thing on the screen. And there's 1,000 AOE's going off, and you're running at 5 frames per second because everyone's trying their best not to fucking suck. So it's like, the fact that we may have a weak aura or an add-on that says, okay, we're just going to put a thing on the screen that says, hey, you have this, go do this mechanic. I don't feel like that's a big deal. I really don't. And I feel like when a lot of people talk about these add-ons that are playing the game for you, I feel like a lot of it comes down to something like that. And it's like, I don't know how much of that is really a big deal and how much of it's just like, hey, look, you guys did a really shitty job of making sure that there was this mechanic that we knew what was going on so that we could take the time to coordinate and play the game. So that so an add-on maker or a weak arm maker said, hey, we've got it.
Well,
We're going to do that for you. We're going to tell you that you have the debuff, and then you still have to go off and do the thing yourself.
yeah,
You know, it feels to me like a lot of this stuff really is far more informational in context,
right,
and I do feel like we don't need that as much this raid. So I wonder
right.
if some of that may be because they hid the auras. Some of it may be because they're designing fights differently. I don't feel like it, I feel like they always blame the add-on makers, but I feel like instead, what we have to realize is that there was a mutual war going on. Like, you know, Blizzard would intentionally make things hard enough that you would need this thing, so the add-on people would say, "Okay, we've got you. We're going to do that." And then Blizzard would complain, "Oh well, uh, we had to make it ridiculously stupid fucking hard because if we didn't do that, then it would be too easy because you've got these add-on makers over here. They make these add-ons and these weak Rs. It would just make it too easy. It plays the game for you." When in reality, they're compensating for Blizzard's design. And I
Yeah.
feel like we're not having to deal with that as much this raid. So maybe it's a good thing. I think it's a little early to tell. Maybe that particular war between the player base and Blizzard is over. Um, but Blizzard doesn't really have a good track record of sticking to this kind of thing either. So it's really hard to tell.
Well,
I am happy. I'm happier this raid than last raid, though.
yeah, definitely. But how much of that going into the weak aura and add-on stuff? Um, and I'll throw this out there. This is really the first, uh, probably the first raid or the first couple of raids that we've had since the whole debacle with the sexual harassment shit that they had going on, which led to a lot of people going over and playing Final Fantasy 14,
That's true.
which doesn't allow add-ons and stuff like that. The game blocks it out completely. There was even
Well,
a
not really.
well, I mean, you can get in some you can get in a lot of trouble if you use add-ons that you can't do.
No, it's not so much that you get in trouble if you use add-ons. You will get in trouble if you use add-ons that break functionality in the game, and then they have some very stereotypical things that are add-on use and stuff that if you say that you're using or you inject that kind of into their gaming culture, then you get in trouble. Which I guess it's kind of the same thing, but I feel like there's a fine distinction there, because I mean there are a lot of add-ons for Final Fantasy 14,
Well,
not as many as
I
WoW.
never no, I never played it as hard, but that was always an understanding I got from it was that they don't have things like weak auras and stuff because you don't need them when you're doing their dungeon content and
That's sort of true, and in fact, I do feel like more players are holding Blizzard more accountable on even just design principles because so many of them went to Final Fantasy 14 and came back.
yeah.
So they've seen the other side now. They're like, okay, I did, maybe Final Fantasy 14 didn't work out for me, but now that I've actually played it, all those people that were telling me that this is a thing and that it's doable, it makes more sense now. You know,
That's,
it makes more sense when you see, okay, well, I always
I
know
can
what
get
kind of
into it.
mechanic this thing is because of how it's telegraphed. I know that you can play better because uh, you know you can make good tutorials as opposed to what Blizzard does. I mean, there are a lot of things that Final Fantasy has done well, and that other MMOs have probably done well too, that Blizzard could take more notice of, and I feel like they've been doing that, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's a good thing.
Well, that's one of the biggest things that Blizzard is really good with World of Warcraft, and is taking things that already exist and improving upon.
Yeah,
They're kind of the Apple of MMOs. You know, they take existing ideas and improve them. You know, you see a lot of things like with the dragon riding, for example, is a I've never played it hardcore, but it's a mount system that's in Guild Wars 2.
yeah, that's
Um,
true.
so, but as with a lot of things that they do, it's more polished. It seems like
Eh,
it's well, I mean,
maybe.
yeah, I mean it's just smooth. Is a way to describe it. It's like I played Guild Wars 2. I wasn't, you know, I got the level 10 and I was like, well, where the fuck do I go from here, and just quit, you know, because there wasn't, it wasn't intuitive enough for me to figure it out. Um,
Yeah. Well,
so,
I feel like WoW's that way too, though. Like, if be honest, if you had never played WoW before, would you have a easy or difficult time getting into the game at the
oh
level
God
you
no,
are now?
God no, it would be an absolute pain in the ass to get into now.
Oh yeah.
It's just so, it's so complex over the years, and that's the advantage of being a player, person who played it for 16 years almost now, is that I've played it as it's changed, so I've been there for the changes, um, and I was able to adapt to the new gameplay, whereas a new player coming into this,
Or even an old one that is kind of coming back.
uh, yes and no to the old one coming back, because in all honesty, I don't think it's changed that much. Like if you played Wrath, this is a simpler concept than Wrath. Current
I
retail
mean,
simpler.
some of it's simpler.
Uh, over
I will give you that
o-
some of it is.
Overall, it's simple. I agree. There's new concepts, there's new things, but if you can play classic, or if you can play Wrath, you can play retail.
I
Uh,
You know what? I'll even go a different way. I don't think it's simpler. I think it's more complicated. Okay, so I'm gonna push back here a little. I don't. I think it's more complicated than Wrath, but um, even though it's more complicated than Wrath, I feel like it's just different. It's not the same thing,
it's not.
right?
It's not. It's definitely not. It's definitely not the same thing. That's for sure. Um,
Yeah, I feel like they're the design philosophy has changed in many ways, and in many ways, like the more it changes, the more it stays the same kind of deal. But like the complexities that they've added to the game compared to Wrath are tremendous, which is one of the
yeah,
reasons I
definitely.
feel like it was so popular going back to Classic and BC and Wrath and what have you. I feel like a lot of players. I don't get me wrong. Some of it is absolutely like, hey, look, we've got these rose-colored glasses on. This is something I did back in the day, and it would be really cool to revisit it. I also feel like a lot of it is just, I'm tired of spending, 90 hours a week on this game because you decided to make it more complicated than it needed to be. And not because more complicated was going to be fun, but because more complicated was just going to be more complicated.
I'll push back on you more. Is it more complicated or more in depth?
More complicated.
Um, I think it's a mix of both. I think there's some systems that's more complicated. Um, at the same time, there's a lot of things that's more simple, like the class trees, the class balancing. is more simple. Um, the new
Uh,
cra-
really?
the new crafting system more complicated. Well, I mean, we just got talent trees back this expansion. Like the last,
Yeah.
since was it Mop when it was Mop or Wad when they brought in the new whatever shit we had beforehand, where you just had the rows where you pick one of three talents, which was absolute just not a fan of. Um, you still got your cookie cutter builds. You're always going to have cookie cutter builds because the game is so data mined and uh, number crunched. Um, it's just the way it is. Like you're just
Yeah.
you've got so many people that just focus purely on the number side of it, and so they're going to fine tune it no matter what system you've got in place. they're going to they're going to find you a cheat sheet. Um,
Yeah. That makes sense.
but I think especially with the new crafting system, it's more complicated, but it's also more in depth. Um, I think the questing is simpler. I think the world content is simpler. I think the raiding and mythic plus dungeon things is more complicated. I wouldn't call it more in depth. I would call it more complicated. I'm with you on that side of it. Not a PvPer. Uh, the main reason I don't PvP is because the balancing, class balancing, is usually shit. You're usually going to have this class, this arena comp that is so OP that if you don't play the same comp to match up with it, you might as well just not play.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the main reason I've never been a fan of PvP, just because the class balancing. Blizzard is this is probably, I mean, 16 years of doing this, 19 years for the game, and they still can't. The class balancing's gotten better, but they still can't balance. They still cannot balance the classes they have, and they keep
Yeah.
introducing more and more, and it just drives me up the damn wall. Um, so it is
Well,
what it is
and
there.
from the same standpoint, though, uh, let me assume that you're correct and that it's not just a lot more complicated in some areas, but it's a little simple in others. And then then in some areas they added more depth.
Yeah.
Does that does the fact that some areas are a little more simple, a lot of them are a lot more complicated, and in some areas you have a little more depth, does that really make it more fun?
For some people, I'd say it does. For the vast majority of people, no. For the vast majority of people, I think it's probably more of a turnoff than it is anything else.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that a lot of the reasons behind what they've done is because they like to I don't like the fact that a lot of it's because they like to obfuscate and make it harder and more complicated and all that shit. Some of it is literally more complicated and frustrating just because making it complicated and frustrating will drive you to play more, because like you have to play more if you want to be any good at it and figure it out. And sometimes like just the RNG doesn't work out, so you got to keep going till the RNG actually works out,
Right.
that kind of thing.
And and,
So
and for masochists like us, that plays into what we like.
to some extent, but
But
from the same standpoint, I don't feel like even me, who really does enjoy playing the game
mhm,
more than I dislike playing the game, I feel like if I didn't feel as obligated to play the game as much as I do, I would be in a better personal state. So I feel like it would actually be doing a service to the players to make it not as much of a pain in the dick, basically, and make it feel like you have to play all the fucking time or you're
right.
losing out or you can't achieve your goals or this, that, and the other. Like, if I could cut my time in WoW in half, and I play a fucking lot.
Yeah.
Like, I probably play more than anybody else that we play with
Yep.
because of my disability. But if I could cut my time in half and I could spend a little more time doing other things, even stupid things, clean my house, read a book, uh, you know, um,
You got a new shiny PS5 you haven't played a whole lot with, I'm sure.
yeah, I could play another game once in a blue moon. It's not like I'm going to stop playing WoW
Yeah.
because I want to have a life outside of WoW.
Right. And that's been a
And
discussion for a while too. They talked about that. They talked about that with the with the Azerite powers and shit like that going on, of how you would fall behind if you didn't play all the time and gather all the shit you needed to maximize your power and stuff like that. That's been a discussion for a while, and they fixed some of that with Dragonfly.
they have they have. I will give you that.
Uh-huh.
They've done a lot of great things. For example, they've added a lot of catch-up
A
mechanics,
lot of
and
catch-up mechanics.
their catch-up mechanics are actually getting better
Yes.
every season, at least so far. I mean, I'll withhold judgment on future seasons, of course. Like,
Oh,
two
absolutely.
seasons isn't a whole lot to go on,
Yeah.
but so far, I'm happy to say it feels like there are more design improvements than design drawbacks every season.
Yes. Yes.
And
It's
then there are a lot of things that I feel like the player base, it kind of comes back to them obfuscating so much. Look at professions, for example. I know people that right now, we're only in season 2, but right
yep.
now they will straight up tell you, "Oh, I'm not gonna do fucking professions." It not only is it more complicated, I could lose money doing it, but like everybody else has such a fucking huge ass head start on me, and there's a good chance I'm going to put it in the wrong place to actually make money and make sure that I'm not
Yep.
losing money doing it. I'm not going to do that. Plus, look at how much profession knowledge I can get. It's almost nothing. It takes fucking forever. There's no way. A lot of players don't realize just how much profession knowledge is front loaded.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I didn't
That's a
realize that
really
until then.
interesting design,
But
right?
and we'll dive into that a bit more in a minute. Just because I think that kind of ties into the economic
Yeah.
stuff this week. So we'll dive into more of that. We've been giving Blizzard some actual praise here, which is kind of unusual. Um, yeah, there's still a lot they can improve on. But overall, things are heading in a general positive direction. I think for 99% of the player base.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but you mentioned something earlier, and so we'll dive into this. Pain in the dick. Speaking of pains in the dick, Mythic Plus is still a pain in the dick.
Oh God, yeah. I remember when they first started talking about their idea that they were going to rotate through dungeons and bring back old dungeons and stuff. And one of the things that I talked with Fett about, and Fett, for those who don't know, is a tank that we have in guild. He
He's
runs,
a god.
m-
That's
he
what he is.
is,
He's a
and he
god.
runs multiple tanks all through 20s and just pushes like ridiculously.
Yeah,
And like, I mean, he'll have 5, 6 tanks done
this is a
by the
guy
end
who
of a
gets
season.
Keystone Hero on multiple characters. Like this
Oh
is
yeah,
not.
he got
Yeah.
Keystone Hero like midway through week 2
Yeah.
or something like
On
that.
his monk, and he's still pushing on his monk, and then he'll probably push his probably Demon Hunter coming up. I say
Yeah, I mean,
probably next for
he
him.
just like he
Um,
plays all tanks at a real high level. But
yeah.
one of the things that we were discussing when we first heard this is that this is really kind of a double-edged sword. Okay, on the one hand, it means that the dungeons shouldn't really get stale because you're constantly doing new dungeons, right?
Yeah.
And that is a plus.
It's a plus.
On the other hand, there is sort of an issue that people don't like talking about, and that's that by bringing back old dungeons and by rotating in new ones this way, people don't know the mechanics.
Yep.
Even people that have done it before, especially the fact that Blizzard tends to change shit, but people don't know the mechanics. So it's whereas before doing Mythic Plus in a set of dungeons meant that you could learn and come up with good ways to deal with stuff, and you can still do that, but like that's the kind of thing like after you have a season's experience at it, the next season should be a little bit easier, and like over time you kind of build into it. It gets a little boring, but it also builds confidence in that like you're not going to necessarily be ruined all the time just due to some knowledge that you don't have, because you build up knowledge over time. With these shorter content booms and with this rotating Mythic Plus agenda, there's a lot of players that aren't going to have the knowledge to get through the way that they have in previous seasons. And I think last season really showed that in spades.
Yeah. Again, with Mythic Plus, I think it is, at least with this season, I worry about what they're going to do for season 3. In all honesty, but they have simplified it uh, by taking some of the, like, with no ending, no main uh, 10 plus affix. Uh, the affixes that are there, at least so far, the first 2 weeks are, they're not horrible. They're not great.
No.
But they're not
Yeah, they're
horrible.
not horrible.
Um, I've noticed a few times, at least this week, because it's the first week that we've had one of the new affixes, entangling. Yeah, entangling is something that's not completely fleshed out. It's something that can fall on mechanics, especially in places like Netherian's Lair, for example,
Yeah.
with all the falling debris that you've got to get out of. At the same point in time, you've got to you need to position yourself strategically, and then you have to move because of fucking entanglement.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and it is, so
They're definitely. It's one of those things like it doesn't sound bad,
right.
but once you actually experience some of the overlaps from the fact that it's a new affix, it can be pretty bad.
Well, Netherian's Lair, like you going back to one of the older dungeons, it's not set up for this.
Well, exactly.
It's
Or
not.
for example, Freehold. Imagine
Freehold's
Freehold.
another one.
Yeah, you have these narrow paths in Freehold. Like it feels like a nice wide open dungeon, and in many ways it is thematically,
Yes.
but when you really look at it, like you have all these alleyways, so you've got stuff around you that you're not pulling, that if you get too close, stuff pulls, and the aggro radiuses are kind of
It's a
fucked.
lot. It's
So
a
it's
lot more
entirely,
linear than it appears.
yeah. And
It
and
really is.
yeah, it absolutely is. But there are a lot of these little places where you can accidentally pull shit,
Yeah.
especially if you've got tanks and people trying to leave stuff up because they're like, well, we want to pull only the bare minimum so that we can get our time in and what have you. And then you've got these really narrow areas where you've got AoE plus entangling going on at the same time, and even just trying to get out of the AoE is something that you're gonna really struggle with, and it's stuff that's gonna one shot you.
Yeah.
Blizzard loves its one shot mechanics.
They do.
Um, I feel like we're gonna see that these new affixes, even though they feel better, they can still have some fucking teeth, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I like that it's still something that has a challenge to it, And at the same time, I think about it's like, would I rather have entangling or explosive? I'll take fucking entangling all goddamn day.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so
Over last season's explosive. Yes. I think they were making some positive headway towards explosive in the PTR, and then they just kind of was like, no, we really do need to just we need to take this. This is one of the affixes we need to take back to the drawing board.
yeah,
And so I think they made the smart move with that. Um,
I I think they are going to re-release explosive
they
next
will.
year,
They will.
but it's probably going to be like they had gone in a certain direction with it, and then all of a sudden they removed it entirely, and they replaced it with one called shielding that was functionally the exact same thing that they had been moving the direction with explosive with. I feel like that's something that we're going to see next year.
Yeah, I think it. We'll probably see an explosive that doesn't. It's either going to nerf the shit out of the damage that it does, or my big thing with explosive is that it's not macroable.
Yeah,
Just make it to where it's macroable. Just they do that to me. I don't have a problem with it. Make them make them where you can hit them with AOE. Um, that way, if you still have an explosive that's out in the middle of Narnia somewhere, you still need to focus it. But just make it just make it to where it's like everything else there. I worry about what they're going to do. We still haven't experienced some of the new affixes. You talking about Freehold earlier. You add Freehold with something like Incorporeal. It's that's still something we're yet to experience with all those mobs, and then you're going to have these things coming on top of it that reduces your damage and healing. Um, it's a lot to see. There's still a lot more to experience with Mythic Plus. Again, I think heading in the right direction just by simplifying it a little bit. Just letting the keystone difficulty be the determining factor over the majority of it is a positive
yeah.
direction. Like, there's a huge ramp up going from an 11 to a 12. That's noticeable.
There is, yeah. But that's something that we had last season, and
Mm-hmm.
it's literally because of what they did with the scaling. Like
Mm-hmm.
we've known about that. We've known about that since Shadowlands that they were going to change the scaling on it, where it was going to scale harder.
Yep. And it's a massive jump. You can do an 11, which I did a shit ton of 11 the first week, just because that's the first level where you start getting the Worm Chris.
Yeah.
Um, so the good news about that is, if you want your Worm Chris and you don't want to pucker your asshole at some points while you're doing that, just run 11s and don't go higher. You will get plenty of Worm Chris, you will get plenty of decent gear, and you'll be fine. If you're like me and you want to keep pushing a little higher, a little higher, a little higher, once you get into that 12 to 15 range, it starts getting rough.
Oh yeah.
And then once you go above 15 into the 16, where you start getting aspect Chris. Ooh, yeah,
And
it hurts.
I think in a way this actually goes well with their idea that the dungeons should be more impactful than the affixes,
And they
right?
are. They really are.
They really are. But it also makes it it can be frustrating because once again it's like Blizzard loves its one-shot mechanics, and these things scale so hard that things that are not one-shot mechanics become one-shot mechanics. And you have to it's almost like you've got to relearn how to do things at a different difficulty.
Yep.
And that's it's even harder because you got to figure now you've got people that are learning to do things at different levels of difficulty, but now now maybe they want to go back and do this on another character or even on the same character and then run it at a lower difficulty, or you've got people that aren't running it things at a higher difficulty running at a higher difficulty,
Yep.
and like the strategies can be vastly different to the point that you have people that will ruin things, and they're not trying to, like they don't understand why things are done a certain way, and it's because things scale in such a ridiculous manner, um and to the point that like on lower keys you may not even know that some mechanics even basically exist or that there are ways around it.
Yeah.
And that can be really frustrating, and it's something like when you're talking about Mythic Plus, you're talking about something that you're doing very consistently, right?
Yep.
It's like, okay, I'm running Mythic Plus, and this is a competitive thing. We're on a time limit. I don't have time, especially if I'm not like in Discord with somebody, to fucking stop and say, okay, this is how it's going. We've got to do it this way. If you don't do it this way, you die. So that's why we've got to do it this way. It's like it's literally not the time to be doing it. So it's almost like you have to be really good at the content at the level that you're going to do it in before you can actually go and do the content, because otherwise you're going to ruin someone else's day entirely, and they're going to be pissed for the rest of the day because you ruined their day. And it's like you weren't trying to, like
No.
there's no way you could have had that knowledge in advance necessarily. That's the kind of thing that I see is probably going to happen a lot. And then from the same standpoint, there are still a lot of things in the dungeons that are just flat out, because of the damage and what have you, they're mistuned hard. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh.
talk about that Neltharian's lair that we did last night.
Oh god.
The
Yeah.
fucking debris, not debris,
Yeah.
like that's the boss damage, but the
It's the boss.
avalanche from the
Yeah.
ads. Like
Avalanche.
even our pug healer was looking at us going, you know what? That's some fucking horse shit. Like I cannot get out of that. And it's true.
We.
Like you're talking about a mechanic that for most people is a one shot, and you can't be by each other at all because you've got other things going on. Like it is an AoE, so it's possible to overlap. And then you've got entangling on top of that. But like when it comes out, it's like you can see it casting, so that's nice. But only if you're using an add-on to really see it's going to happen. And then when it happens, it's up for the course of like 0.5 seconds, and that's assuming that your latency isn't absolute fucking garbage.
Yeah. Heaven
So
forbid you're with OCE or
yeah,
something.
so you have to fucking be moving. You have to be moving before it happens, or you will probably get one shot. So I feel like there's a lot of things like that, that are still left in these dungeons that are mistuned. Uh, that some of it is going to be in the older dungeon, and it's literally because they were never intended for this kind of thing. And then some of it's in the newer dungeons, just because Blizzard really has moved in this direction. They really just wanted to make things ridiculously difficult, mechanically. And then when you add the scaling on top of it, it scales in a way that really is not feasible for the average player. So I do feel like there are things like that we're going to see. Um, I'm hopeful so far, given what I've seen out of Blizzard. Like they are changing things, and I understand like they can't just release a patch like, all right, all Mythic Dungeons mechanics are now uh they're all immediately reduced by half, and we are also doing this, that, and the other as well. No, they can't do that. They got to go through, and they've got to, all right, we're reducing this one ability 20%. We're reducing this. We're going to increase the cast time by 1 second on this. I get that, but it is going to be really frustrating for a lot of players. I can already tell that this season is going better than last season, though. But that's assuming that people come back to play it, right? last season was such horse shit that I can also tell that there are a lot of people. I actually asked a few friends if they wanted to come and do Mythic Plus with me, and I said after last season, no, I refuse. I said, it's actually not as bad as it was. No, I still refuse.
Still
I am
refuse.
not
Okay.
doing it. So I feel like sometimes when they take that kind of approach, they can take steps in the right direction, and it may well be kind of a too little, too late type deal. And it's like, all right, well, now you got to wait a year and a half, 2 years before these people are like, all right, I guess I'll try it again. And I hope they don't burn me again. And then you got to hope that you're in the right development cycle and they haven't gone back on everything and then made things even harder and what have you. So I, I feel like Mythic Plus could be a real pain in the dick.
It's a big pain in the
It,
dick.
it oh yeah, it's a huge pain in
It's
the
not
dick
as bad of a
sometimes,
pain in the dick,
especially
but
on
it's still a
higher
pain in the
things.
dick. Um,
Yeah, uh, but it is better than last season so far. And it's moving in a positive direction. I have some hope there.
I had some hope heading into this season, but what worries me is knowing Blizzard. I think that they're going to think that this season is too simple. All
Yeah,
right, just seeing their track record on things like that. I think that they're going to, while this is better, I think they're going to be like, no, there should be something else. Like it's not to them, they're going to think it's not enough. What we have now is not enough. Um,
you know
that's
what worries me about that?
that's just from experience.
What really worries me about that is Blizzard has a tendency to look at the data, and I have a feeling they'll look at the data here too. But if players don't come back and don't engage enough in Mythic Plus, I have a feeling they're going to misinterpret that and go, "Oh, well, clearly they wanted it to be harder."
They wanted more. So
Yeah, which
they left because they wanted more and we didn't give it to them. So now here's
exactly.
more is
So,
what
so
they're
I
going to think.
I am worried that Blizzard is going to it's going to view this as something like that.
And they're bad for that. It's like, Ian come on record was like, with Azerite power in Legion or whichever it was called in it was all the same for 3 expansions pretty much. It's so but he even said because of the popularity of Legion, they was like, okay, but we need to do this for Battle for Azeroth. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. We need to, okay, it's not as good. We can improve upon it though. Let's reintroduce it for Shadowlands. And
Oh,
and
yeah.
the player base is like, no. We it was fine in Legion, but we didn't want it again. And then you gave it to us again.
Well, actually, I
because and it was
I feel like a lot of people didn't think it was fine in Legion too.
ah,
They kind of went, you know
yeah,
what? Like, if you're going to do something like this, I don't like it, and you need to improve it. And I feel like there wasn't enough improvement there to make the majority of the player base like it. And then they had an entirely new expansion where it was the same fucking system.
yeah,
Like they did it differently,
yep,
but it wasn't really improved at a level where
right.
people were like, "Oh yeah, this is so much better."
Well, what it was new for Legion. Like it was new.
Yeah,
So people were engaged with it because it was new. And then as the newness wore off, people was like, okay, I'm done with this. Especially by the
yeah,
end of Legion, people were done with it. I was done with the Lego system because I didn't get my best and swap legendaries that I absolutely needed until they finally released the damn thing where you could buy the legendary. Such a pain in the ass it was for me through Legion.
yeah.
Still one of my favorite expansions overall, but there were definitely things that they needed to improve on legendaries were just, I won't go into a deep dive on Legion, but it was, it's still one of those things. It's like, they're like, okay, well, players love this, let's give them more. When it's not players loved it, players initially really liked it, and then kind of got sick of it, but Blizzard thought because that initial engagement was there, okay, let's give the players more instead of looking at the overall package, the overall disdain for some of it that
Yeah.
players were giving it. I
I
think
feel,
they're more. I think they're doing better for us listening to the player base. There's
I think they're getting better at that. Yeah.
yeah, they're still really stuck on we know better than the players.
They are. And some of that I feel like as much as they are getting better at listening to the player base, I feel like that's kind of a new thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
It is.
even now, a lot of their information doesn't come from just sitting down with players and going, "All right, so what do you like? What do you not like?" And then like instead of flipping out and going, or not flipping out, but just dismissing it and going, "Well, our design philosophy is this." Actually listening and going, okay, so that's what made it bad, huh?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Oh, that's what made it fun for you. Well, that would be great. I feel like a lot of times Blizzard, both like the executives and the management team, and even some of the people that are looking at design philosophy and stuff, they have certain goals in mind, and they don't really sit down and really understand where the player base is coming from. I feel like a lot of times instead of doing that, what they do is they look at metrics.
Yep.
And metrics are hard data. It,
Very
it,
hard.
it can be good data, but without understanding why something is the way it is, it's useless data. Which means that you actually have to fucking sit down and, all right, so what happened here? Like I see you I see at the very beginning of the fucking expansion, like in the first 2 weeks, you ran 45 keys. What happened? Why did you suddenly stop? It's like, well, because I ran 45 keys because I was trying to give you an actual chance, and I really needed the gear, and I didn't want to get kicked off the raid team and what have you. And I had to farm this thing, and it's the only farmable fucking content that you let me get into,
Yep.
and I was really mad about it, but I don't really have time for all that stuff, and it was just getting worse and worse, and it was either I was going to fucking quit the game entirely or I stopped doing this content.
Well,
I feel like there's a lot of stuff like that where if they just sat down and listened, like, okay, why why do the players like this? Why don't they like it? What parts of the design make sense? What parts don't make sense? They're getting better, but they could be a lot better than they are even now.
well, there's an old saying that numbers never lie. Have you heard that before? I mean,
I have.
I'm sure you have. Oh, I mean, perfect timing.
It's not
Uh,
really a good saying, but
well, but the reality of that is, numbers will tell you whatever you want them to tell you.
yeah, it'll tell you
Uh,
what you want to hear from them.
yeah, it is like if you wanted to go with like, oh, we've got you know, 2 million players, just throwing a random number out there that that's engaged with this. When it's when the actual number is 2 million people started out playing this.
Yeah.
What was the end number? What was the number at the end? That you can completely ignore that and still say, oh, we had this many people engaged with our stuff and they want more of it.
Well, I
When it,
imagine I kind of imagine they even look at like how it falls off, right?
yeah,
I just don't know how much time they spend trying to figure out why it fell off and why people went, all right, I'm gonna not do this thing anymore. you know, because that's an important part of it. Like I've said it before with Mythic Plus in particular, but this is with any fucking content in WoW. I really want to be able to get online and be excited to do it, either solo or with a group of friends, or even with pugs. I want to be excited. I want to go, yes, I'm not wasting my time. I'm about to have a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be engaging for me.
It's definitely
And the
interesting.
fact is that there are times that I get a hit on that, but there's a lot more times where I get a miss.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot more times where it's like, okay, that's good in theory, but the actual player experience is I sat in queue trying to find a fucking group for, an hour and a half, and finally I got one that took me after like 200 declines. And once I finally gotten this one group to fucking take me instead of decline me outright, I got in the key, and 5 minutes in, the tank DC'd, or the healer, it
Or
turned out,
fire up.
even though they had the IO or the gear level, couldn't heal worth a shit, or they were, sometimes it's not even that, maybe it's like they're used to a different route, whatever the fuck it is.
Yep.
Like there's 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 a vast difference. So like if you look at just pure numbers, then you have an understanding of what the numbers say, but not what they're trying to tell you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like you have to understand the why behind it,
Mhm.
and you have to understand the player experience, not just the experience going by the numbers.
Right. And it's took Blizzard literally two expansions to see, hey, to want to dig into why the numbers are telling them what they're telling them.
Yeah.
Right. And it really has. It's took them BFA and Shadowlands for them to say, hey, we need
Hmm.
to figure out why this is happening. Instead of just sitting there, oh, well, this is happening. Okay, let's
Yeah.
try this, instead of digging into the meat of the matter.
Honestly, what they need to do is they need to get their fucking heads out of their ass,
It's
because
maybe
they're
slowly coming out.
like I get it. They are trying to make moves to make the game a better place, but that's not their primary move here, right?
Right.
Because you have to think about the end goal. The end goal for you or I, and for some developers, not all, because it's not going to be the same for every developer, but for some developers, it's going to be make the game more engaging and fun to play. Like literally, like that's the goal. Hit or miss, that was the intention.
Yep.
But you have to think about the fact that Blizzard is a company, and as a company with shareholders, with boards of directors, with management,
Oh yeah.
with all this other thing, what they are
It's
focused on are
all about the
target
money, honey.
numbers.
It's
Well,
all about the
exactly.
money, honey.
And
We know
with
that.
it being all about the money, that means that a lot of times the strategies that they take have absolutely nothing to do with making the game better.
Oh yeah.
You know, let me give you a good example. The new trading post thing. Now, personally, I think that's a great. I think that has been a good addition. But when you think about it, uh, the complaint that will continuously be cropped up is I can't get everything that I want out of it. Now,
Yep.
keep in mind, uh, the entire purpose of it. I don't care what the fuck they say. Like I'm sure on some level there are developers that are like, we just thought this was a cool thing. Yeah, that's nice, but no, the entire actual purpose of this was to, one, get you to keep on playing, and two, keep you subscribed.
Yeah.
Okay, so a- add to that the fact that you can't get everything out of it, and then come back with a post saying, by the way, the stuff that you don't get, you will be able to maybe get at a later date. We expect stuff to come back around.
Yeah, stuff is going to
It's
come
about
around on month 7 at
yeah.
the end of your 6-month sub. That's
Look,
kind of so stay subbed
look at
after your 6-month sub so that you can get this stuff that you wasn't able to get 6 months ago. That's exactly.
look at the addition of a 1-year sub.
Well, yeah, that
So
was temporary. That was temporary. You can't get a
oh,
1-year sub.
okay, it was
But yeah,
temporary,
but still,
but there
yeah.
was a lot of people that were not happy about that too,
Oh yeah.
and the reason is that it is extremely player unfriendly
Oh yeah.
when you
It's
think about it. You know, it didn't offer any tangible benefit as far as a further
It was
discount.
the same price as the 6-month sub. There was no further
Yeah,
discount. You
same
just
price.
got additional little pets or whatever the fuck it was. I don't
Yeah.
remember what it was. It was just
Pets, mounts, that kind of crap.
yeah.
And it's the thing that, like, we know how much people are driven by that stuff. It's like I know you aren't particularly driven by
No.
the idea of mounts and pets
I have
usually.
a 6-month sub for the discount. I do not. That's the only reason I have a 6-month sub.
Yeah,
I know I'm going to play the game, and it
exactly.
saves me a little bit of money. That's the only reason
And you
I
know
do
what?
it.
I am okay with the fact that they add another benefit to that, but you got to understand, like,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people that will get these 6-month or 1-year sub, and I realize that's not a thing anymore. But there are a
Yeah.
lot of people that will do that kind of thing, not because it's a great benefit to them money wise. Sometimes
Right.
it's a bad thing for them because um, it means that, you know, after they've finished all the content they want in 2 months, or got frustrated because
Yep.
the content was so bad that they decide to fucking quit the game, they're still subbed.
Yep.
Blizzard already has their fucking money,
Blizzard has the
right?
money, and there's no. Yeah. It's not like
Like they're
Blizzard doesn't offer you a refund if you decide to unsubscribe after.
exactly.
You know,
Like
it's.
there's no coming back from that,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like um there's a constant pull between, like, developers and then people that are more worried about the money. And the developers are worried about the money too, I'm sure. On some level, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, well, you know what? It would be nice to eat next month, and
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a box down by the river.
Yeah.
So it would be great if we could get people to pay for the fucking game.
It's a
I
thing
get
about
that,
it.
and that's a very reasonable way to feel. But I feel like a lot of things that have slowly crept up into gameplay, with things being more complicated or what have you, just for the sake of trying to get more engagement or keep you playing, what have you. A lot of that is very player unfriendly, and it really comes back down to money.
Yep. Well, yeah, it's all about the money, and that's you know it's just an unfortunate side of business.
Well, yeah, I
It
don't want to
is.
pretend like that's a horrible thing, right?
Right.
Because, you know, I don't want these people to be over here making this game that I get all this value from for free. I want them to be, you know, making money and stuff. But when their goal of making money makes the game that I'm paying for actively less fun, I start having issues. And there's only so much of that that a lot of people can take before they say, okay, I'm going to do something else.
Right, and that's in all honesty, that's a lot of their problem. It's like they went from a peak of 14 million subscribers in Wrath to a point in WAD, I believe it was, to where they even stopped announcing how many subscribers they had.
Oh yeah, they don't announce it anymore.
Yeah, and
Um,
they haven't since WAD. With the huge decline that they had in WAD, they stopped, and now they come up with this whole monthly concurrent users or something like that's
yeah,
their
something like
thing
that.
now, and it's just it's money talk for it's business talk for we have this much engagement, whether or not it's actually unique people is a completely different story. Uh, but it's a way of twisting numbers to look better than they actually are. Uh, which again goes back into that number thing. But it's what I'm trying to say here is, and I agree with you. I completely agree with you on that side of it. There's a lot of them that just don't care, and
I'm sure. Yeah.
then they get to a point where they did in Shadowlands. It's like, well, why are people leaving? Why are people not engaging with this stuff that we've worked so hard on? Not realizing how they've pushed the player away
Yeah.
because they're not paying attention to why. And again, it sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom for you to realize, hey, I need to change something. Um, that's a life lesson as much as it is for a business lesson. And so I think we're heading in a positive direction,
Yeah.
but I do worry about how much of this is and what season 3 will have in store. I worry about season 3. I do.
Yeah.
Um, I yeah. We've been on it for a while. It's just, and I can talk to you about it forever. I really could. Um, let's go into let's end this on a more positive direction here. Speaking of the money, baby. Speaking of the money,
Oh, I
ha,
love
how's it
I
going?
love positive numbers.
Yeah,
Positive numbers are so much nicer than negative numbers,
yes
aren't
they
they?
are. Yes, yeah. I've told you before. I've made more gold this week than I ever have in my entire 16 years playing WoW.
I'm actually really proud of you for that because
So,
a lot
um,
of people really struggle to make gold, and the fact that over the past few months have gone, all right, I'm going to learn how to do this, and then you've actually started. I can tell you've started having fun with it. It's
yeah,
addictive,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Like,
I'm going around. I'm farming the rare stuff. I've I grinded my ass off to be able to get the bracer recipe for leatherworking, um, and it's paid off.
yeah,
I started this reset. I had 86,000 gold on my hunter. Before I bought shit this morning, I bought some recipes, and I actually, I told you I splurged for the belt enchant, just because it's on a crafted piece that I'm not going to get rid of. That was
I'm
the
going to
whole
laugh if you ever actually get
the
rid
whole
of it.
reason. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm not the you know. So I know I'm not going to get. The chances are I'm not going to get rid of it.
You're right.
Just
I
put
mean,
it that way.
I'd take that bet.
Um, I had 632,000 gold as of this morning before I spent some.
Yeah,
That's a lot
you,
for me.
you
It's
you've had a good week.
I've had a good week, and the week's not over. I'm still planning on adding to my coffers today before it's over with, and then I'll probably add more this week because you know every week people's going to come in and they're going to be ready to craft this, or they're going to get a piece from their vault and it's going to be like, well, shit, now I need to get this crafted, and boom, you know it's just going to get busier. I think next week will be even busier just because people have a full spark again in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So,
I imagine it's going to fall off, but it's going to be much later in the season.
yeah.
People are going to be less willing to part with gold for their alts. And that's a big part of the season too. Like you will wind up having more and more people do alts and more people upgrading old gear. But you're all at a certain point, it is going to fall off, and it's going to be later than you would think. But at a certain point, people are going to be falling off. They're going to be doing what our guild does. We finished heroic, or they'll finish mythic, or they're going to have all their seasonal goals done, and they might still play here and there, but they may want to focus on other games and what have you. And that's when you're going to see prices fall, both for craft orders and for materials for a while.
Yep. So I've been working on one of my things. I've been working on too is you mentioned that on the PTR that drums was something that was going to be part of the weekly barter brick quest.
Yeah,
So
at some point,
that's one of
that's
the
going to be
things
a lot
I've
of
been
work.
working on, to where I can multi-craft some drums for when that happens.
Good luck getting over me on that.
Well, I know I'll be there with you. Hopefully, there'll be plenty of market share for both of us on that one. That's
I
my
am
hope.
positive that there will be. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
when you look at this week, like I said, I had one of our guildies get on and start doing shovels because they threw
shovels.
me a curveball this week.
Yeah.
So I had to actually sit there and craft a bunch of cloth. On the plus side,
I got in
I
on
had
the
already
vibrant
bought all
spell
those
thread.
fucking vibrant
Yeah.
shards.
I got in
Um,
on that for a little
and
bit.
and I always have a just massive supply of cloth bolts to begin with. So I had the stuff to make it.
Yeah.
So I got in fairly early. I probably made a good 3 million this week,
Yeah.
maybe.
See. Yeah.
Um,
But
if I had known
t-
what was coming,
tell
I
tell
probably could have made like 10.
yeah, tell everybody how much outstanding you've got right now that you've reinvested. Let's just put a
Oh,
nice little
I've
number in.
reinvested most of it.
Uh huh.
So even though I made about 3 million this week, I reinvested most of it because I already have made some really heavy preparations towards some of the other quests.
Yeah.
I've also reinvested it just based on the way the prices are going right now for a lot of stuff. You can see like the price of frost is going way up.
Oh my
The
gosh.
price of fire is going up a little bit. The price of decay is it's fluctuating, and I imagine that it's going to shoot way up, given the next time we have a new spark and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Um, there are definitely some really big areas where prices are going up. You're going to see some huge numbers from awakened orders and from
I mean,
Titan orbs. I kind of imagine you're going to see really big numbers from what is it, the new Shadow Steel alloy thing.
yeah.
Um,
Awaken Frost still only went up, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. It's just like it was 30. Uh, the Awaken Frost was selling for 15 gold 2 weeks ago.
yeah, well,
It's
not
a
too. Well, it would have been probably about 3 weeks ago now,
yeah.
but yeah, absolutely. And the
I'm
thing
looking at the
is,
auction house right now. It's 121.
oh yeah, and as we're
Fuck.
talking, I am
Yeah,
going
you.
through more and more
Uh
cloth
huh. Yeah.
to sell frost. And the thing is, you wouldn't think it about frost because it's almost always the cheapest of them, right?
Yep.
But it's used in so fucking much,
Yep.
right? It's not used in as much crafting like gear. You do use it in a couple things. You use it in I think the Frostfire alloys and a couple other things here and there, but it is used heavily in consumables for raid.
Yep.
It's used in it's used in a whole lot of the potions. It's used in all of the fauna runes. Like as a hunter, you don't know as much about the fauna runes.
No.
You deal with rockets, which I also make. But the fauna runes are the runes that add crit or haste or mastery. It's used in the creation of reagents that then make gear. It's used in Vantis runes. I mean, just across the board, it's an extremely useful thing to have. And I expect next week or the week after, like as much as you think it's gone up now,
Yeah,
next week or the
probably
week
only going to go up
after,
more. Yeah.
it's going to go fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And the reason is one of the quests for inscription. Um, in the inscription quest for the barter bricks, one of the items is rank 2 chilled runes, right?
Ooh. Yeah.
So rank 2 chilled runes. Now, granted, you only need 15 of them, but you got to understand what's going to happen here. All of a sudden, people are going to be buying frost hard. They're going to be buying ink hard.
Yep.
They're going to be buying pigment hard so that they can make ink, so that they can put it all together. And this stuff crafts really slow. So if you've got this
Mm-hmm.
stuff stored up, like you're fucking gold. You're going to make a shit ton of gold.
Rank 2 children right now, 72 gold.
Oh yeah.
So
You know what it was last week?
probably like, I don't know, if I had to put a number on it, probably like 30.
About 25, 30 gold.
See, okay, that's a
Actually,
good guess.
I could probably even check. I'm gonna check while we talk. But there are so many fucking things um that are going to be shooting up, and you can see that with Awakened Frost, and it's caught
It's
like
ridiculous,
the chief way
ridiculous.
that we find Awakened Frost. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can go farm frost and stuff like that, and
Yeah,
you get a fair amount from what is it, from herbalism, what have you. But the big thing is milling, or not milling, but
yeah. I was just looking at
unraveling
the
frostbitten
frostbitten.
welder cloth.
They're five.
Yeah,
They're 5 gold apiece right now for one
yeah. You
frostbitten.
know what those usually are?
What?
Silver.
Yeah, yeah. I remember.
I
I
yeah,
remember.
as of like 3 weeks ago, I was regularly getting frostbitten welder cloth for 60 to 70 silver
Yeah,
per.
yeah, I remember. I wish I'd gotten in on that myself. See what it's
I
got.
fucking bet
But
you did.
fucking, But that hindsight 2020 on that shit. That's for sure. Uh, just uh, the reagent market is it's crazy right now. Like the inflation of raw materials and stuff is God. I've just noticed being a leather worker and a skinner, just how much regular leather's gone up in the last week.
Yeah.
You've got the rare cobra skin that's selling for tens of thousands, was up in the hundreds of thousands of gold initially,
Oh,
until
I
till
absolutely
people
used to.
caught wind on it. It's just
And honestly, it could go back up with more people being willing to craft those items too.
yeah, as
Though it's possible that it won't because there are enough people that are in the market
yeah,
now trying to sell.
yeah. I think the supply's been inflated, so
And
it's helping a lot.
the same thing can apply to Draculists too,
Yeah,
or Dracothists rather.
yeah,
If people kind of cut back on making them, unless more people enter in to the market, or we have a whole lot of people saving Dracothists, we have a whole bunch of people saving them from resource procs, and so
yep,
there's a great deal of potential for that to bounce back. Now, I think the best potential is always going to be, fairly at the beginning of the week. Then it's
yep.
going to go way down. Then it's going to go way back up as people as people buy them out.
Yeah,
So I would.
I'm pretty confident that it seems like Mondays when we're going to see our lows. I was just looking. Cobra skins are going for 46,000 right now.
Yeah,
That's what
Monday is always
I
the day
sold
that you
them.
see
I sold
lows.
them yesterday for 72. So
Oh yeah.
that tells you how much that
Oh yeah.
they've
I
went
was
down
mad
on them.
because I woke up this morning and I have a bunch of the Shadow Flame alloy that I'm sitting on.
Yeah,
and I made it, and I wasn't exactly happy with the price it was selling at because I didn't get enough. I didn't get enough multi-craft and resourcefulness procs to make it where I wanted it. And I've mentioned that before, like some of these new recipes where there's something really really rare like that, like it becomes really RNG based whether or not you're even gonna fucking make money
Yeah,
because so many people push the price down way further than it has any right to go down.
yeah.
But
Dractus are back under 5K again. Um, so they've dropped down a bit again.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
what was it? I was looking right now. There's currently a little over 9,100 on the auction house at the moment.
yeah.
So
And I think some of it is that people keep on buying, and some of it is also that when auctions fall off, people don't immediately get them back up on the auction house.
yeah, and I'm with you. Uh, unless you get good multi-craft procs, they're more expensive to make at the moment than they are to
Yeah.
sell. So I'm with you. We're definitely going to see a contraction in that market sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
particularly with more casual people going, all right, I'm not even gonna fucking bother anymore.
yep. People's going to be like, they made that initial investment and they're like, oh, I'm selling, I'm out, I'm done, I'm not fucking with it no more.
And
Um,
that's one of the reasons that prices are going so far down repeatedly is because people want out of that market.
yep. They
Like,
want out of it. They're done with it because
yeah.
it didn't do what they wanted it to do initially, and you know, it's like
Well, when people push something down far enough that you're no longer making profit,
well,
the natural the natural feeling for most people is, okay, I need to get out of this market and try and make
mhm.
back what I can from my investment.
Well, there's a saying in the stock market too that I've seen numerous times what I played, and it applies here too, is that the stock market is a way for the impatient to lose money to the patient,
Oh, absolutely.
and that's kind of what this is. It's like it is a wave. It's like if you're not patient enough and knowledgeable enough of what the market is doing, you're just you're going to lose out.
Now,
And
I would still hedge your bets, not just like doing other things while your investment sits there as
oh yeah,
Dracathis,
yeah, definitely
but
don't throw all your eggs in one basket.
yeah, but I would also hedge your bets in that if the price goes up enough for you to make a decent profit, but you're like, well, it's not back up to 20K,
Right.
or if the price goes up enough and you feel like let's say I know a popular gold maker um who bought like 2 or 300 of them at 20K.
Yep.
He's probably not making that back. I won't rule it out,
No.
but he's probably not making that back. But let's say you bought like 20, 30 of them, 50 of them at like 4K or just under 4K or something like that, and you see it at 6K and you're like, I could wait a bit and see if I can't get a little more. Hedge your bet. Put half of them up at that. It's not something that costs a whole lot to post on the auction house, and I get it. This sort of feeds into the same problem because then when you post and someone else is like, well, I've got to undercut him, and everyone else is like, well, I've got to undercut them, and it turns into a whole thing. But at the same time, you have the opportunity to make sure at the very least that you don't lose money on some while keeping enough of your investment that you go, all right, at a later date, maybe you'll wind up making some money, more than you would here.
Yeah.
So I would always err on the side of hedging your investment. In fact, I know gold makers, for example, the new Shadowflame Essence, right?
Oh God.
I
Yeah.
know gold makers that are buying that and then crafting with it and then selling their craft stuff. On the flip side, I also know gold makers that are buying it and then later on like when they're looking up other stuff, like they've just got favorited and it pops up in their feed. They go, oh well, shit. In the meantime, it's gone up, 15K. It's like on on the one hand, I could make a bunch of stuff and try and sell all the stuff, and it will go cheaper than anyone who made it when it was up 15K can get out of it, which means that I can sell it at a lower price. It's like across the board, that's a good idea. But what else is a good idea? It's just like I bought all these 15K cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
I should sell them now. And it's
Yep.
just flat out. Hey, look, and you can make a lot of gold if you have the time and willingness to gamble like that on the auction house as well.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
definitely going to watch probably this evening, depending on how the price is going with the Dractus. I may invest a little bit more on that with them being under 5K again, because I think they'll probably be back over. If I had to put a number on it, I think they'll probably be around 6 to 7 again tomorrow.
yeah, if I see them go to like mid 4K or lower, I might invest some more.
They're about
We'll
there
see.
now. They're at 48 at the moment, so
They're at 48.
yep,
Yeah, if they get below 4.5 or 4.2 or something like that, I'm more likely to invest.
yep. I'm with you there. I'm watching it. It's a market I'm watching.
Yeah,
So
and you can tell that the people that are posting right now and trying to get out of the market right now, it's like people don't understand that this is the way it always works. The beginning of a week, that's when everybody needs gear crafted. It's also it's like immediately people start raiding, so you have
yep.
more materials hit the market too. So stuff goes up and it goes down a little bit, but it goes back up because you have so many people wanting to craft
Yeah.
gear.
If you ever
Like,
watch the market on just potions and files and enchants and stuff like
oh
that
yeah,
from the beginning of the
everything
week
goes
to
up
the
the
end of the
first
week,
day or
yeah,
two.
it's you know that's just it's one of those things. Go watch, pay attention. It's
Yeah,
the big thing of it. It's to watch and pay attention. You can make some serious gold if just kind of keep an eye out, and it's even easier now. I mean, hell, you got the auction house on your phone. It's not like you can't watch the market and still not even be in the game.
yeah.
It's crazy easy to do.
Yeah, you people
Um,
in your phones.
yeah, don't you have phones?
Well,
God,
no, I don't. So
I
shut
know.
the fuck
Yeah,
up,
I know.
bitch.
Uh, but all right, well, we'll definitely you know this good episode went we took a little bit and turned it into a lot, I think.
Yeah,
So,
there wasn't a whole lot of news this week,
no,
but there was still a whole lot to talk about. Um, and there was stuff that we could have talked about too. Like for example, in coming months, maybe we'll talk more about 10.1.5,
yeah,
the new mega dungeon and stuff like that. But we need a little more information on it.
yeah, that needs to flesh out a bit more before I want to kind of bring it in. I got some news. I told you earlier. I did buy. I haven't paid for it because I don't know how paying him is going to go. But I do have a one-on-one session with the theory crafter hunter extraordinaire Azor, however you pronounce his name, Azor Theron or whatever. Azor
As
is
a
what I call
Rothian
him.
or something.
Yeah, Azor's what I go by. Most people know him by. So I'll definitely have some hunter insights uh, next week to
Yeah,
go
I'm
that we
looking
can
forward
talk
to
about.
seeing.
I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward
I'm
to seeing what you learn, and I'm also
super
looking forward to
excited.
pushing back on it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know me,
Well,
I've got my opinions.
yeah. We've had a discussion on that today, learning stuff and watching it. So super excited to dive into that. Um, we'll see how we do raid this week. I think we'll probably be pushing I don't think we'll be pushing on AOTC this week, but I think next week it could start becoming a possibility.
It could be. I don't know because I believe that our current plan is as follows. So next week we will be able to get the skip right. So
Well,
we'll go all the way through normal.
this week we'll have the last piece for the
Well,
skip.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
This week, next week, you
next
know what
week
I
we can
mean.
skip.
So,
Yeah,
so, so the next rating week, which is as of tomorrow starting, we should be able to get the skip. So we'll go all the way through normal again, and we still have a number of people that need gear, and
yeah.
some people haven't gotten fucking trinkets. Cricket, you bitch. Okay.
Almost talking
So,
about.
so there are still some. There's still a lot of people that need gear. We've still
I
had
still
some.
need a
We've
heroic
had some
trinket.
we've had some brand new rerolls too, so we're still gearing a few people. There are good reasons
I need the heroic
to do the
version of
skip.
this.
Well, that's good for you. Um, but there's still a good reason to keep on doing the skip.
Yeah,
Because you'll still get the whatchamafucker thing that turns into tier, which is nice, and then like one of the best trinkets in the game. But like, th- there are a lot of great reasons to continue doing the skip and then running into heroic. So we'll probably do that for a few weeks as well, and that may stifle our progress a little bit towards
it will.
AOTC,
It will.
but
But
it's also going to smooth things out in
it's
the long
understandable.
run.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Obviously, the more gear you got, the easier it is. So, I mean, that just
Yeah.
helps right off the bat. But alrighty, Mr. Misek, it was a trip. Uh, a lot to dive into, a lot to go into next week. Just pay attention, subscribe, follow, watch. Um, Definitely interact. Keep going. We're going to keep doing this, whether there's 2 people watching or 20 people watching or 1,000 people watching. This is fun. I enjoy it every week. Uh, yep. Well, episode 7 wrapped up.
Keep
See you next week.
keep paying attention to Cricket. He sucks less than last year.
What a list.
You guys have a great day.
All right.
Have a fucking nice day, bitch.
Bye.